This is Making Stitches, and this time I'm sharing a chat with Melissa Santiago-Val, the founder of the So Positive charity. She explains the impact of the work they do and how it's so much more than simply a sewing group.
Most of the feedback is actually about, this has just been amazing for my confidence, I'm able to get out. People have set up their own sewing groups. We've had somebody who's had a lot of difficult circumstances in life and has now gone to university and she's doing a creative writing degree. She's got children who are now, also doing crafts where there was a lot of difficult issues in the home. We've got men who come who've said they feel heard, they feel like they've got a safe space for men to actually talk about mental health, which is so important when worldwide there's a suicide every minute from men, and it's such a huge issue. And we really want to get men sewing and being creative and having that sort of additional creative space to talk about mental health. So a lot of the feedback we get is, it's just great to be able to have a community. I've found a community of friends and of people that understand, but it's not just about the sewing. They can talk about whatever it is that is going on in their lives and feel like they've got a supportive group of people.
Hello and welcome to Making Stitches. I'm Lindsay. I've loved making things for as long as I can remember. I learned to sew, knit and crochet as a child, and a love of making has stayed with me ever since. As an adult, I worked as a journalist for a while and discovered a love of hearing people's stories too. Later on, Making Stitches was born, allowing me to join those two loves of mine, creativity and conversation. This time I'm delighted to be joined by Melissa Santiago-Val, founder and CEO of So Positive. What began during the pandemic as a community effort making face masks to raise money for NHS charities has grown into an inspiring organisation using sewing, mending and upcycling to support people's mental health and well-being. In our chat, Melissa shares her own creative journey, the story behind So Positive, and how stitching can be so much more than making something with our hands. We talk about creativity as a tool for connection, confidence and community, and explore how sewing can help people through difficult times while also encouraging a more sustainable approach to the clothes we wear. Here's Melissa now.
I set up this charity 5 years ago. My background in sewing is, I would say, probably like many people who've sewed, a mixed bag. So when I first started sewing at school, I really, really hated it because in the education system, it was really boring, and it took like a year to make a skirt or something, and it wasn't a skirt I wanted to wear anyway, and I didn't like it. So I didn't bother doing it after that for quite some years. And my mum sewed, but I think, her generation, my mum made my school uniform dresses and things like that because fabric was affordable. And so it was seen as a way of saving money, whereas now fabric is obviously quite expensive. And so I didn't come to it until quite later on, really. And then all I was doing before the pandemic was sewing bunting and cushions, and I loved textile art. And I'd found that sort of creativity had started to flourish in me, but I think, again, sort of challenging the view that we're not creative when we're at school. And I thought, I don't feel that anymore. So I wanted to follow that. And then COVID hit and I was furloughed. And a friend of mine said, I'd got my sewing machine out. I was making my mum like an applique cushion for her birthday. And she said, why don't we make some masks and see if we can raise some money for the NHS? And I said, actually, yeah, I'd quite like to do that because I'm furloughed and I want to keep myself busy. So, I said, I don't know how to make a mask. So she said, there's this new thing called Zoom. We can work it out. So we worked out a way. She'd got a way of making them, and then we tweaked that. And we started making masks, and we set up a fundraiser for the NHS. Obviously, what happens next. We needed more masks. We needed more people volunteering to sew masks. We needed more fabric. And so it then started to really snowball. And I think the thing that really surprised me was how many people in my own area I didn't know, that I thought I knew my village really well, that sort of came out of the woodwork, and they weren't just sewing, they were washing fabrics, they were finding duvet covers, and they were cutting things up. People who hated sewing were like ironing things for us. And we just saw a really lovely way of bringing people together. And a lot of people said, this has really helped me so much, because it's really difficult. I can't see my family. I'm isolated. I'm in a village, but this has really helped. And alongside that, we were giving a lot of masks to different charities in our region whose participants and clients couldn't get hold of masks, and it was really difficult. So we were making really lovely fabric lined with muslin masks. So they were washable, reusable. They were donated fabrics, so it was sustainable. It was a really lovely thing to do. They were also jolly, so they were trying to sort of make a little bit of a sort of not just a clinical look for people who just wanted to have that sort of bit more security as we emerged out of the pandemic. So we ended up making 14,000 masks, and we raised £40,000 for the NHS. And during that project sort of closing and moving forward, I basically sat and worked out a way of making it into a charity. And I'd been a trustee for a Home Start charity, and I'd been a volunteer for years for them and for other organisations. And I thought, yeah, maybe I should set up a charity. And I was in a tent in Norfolk, literally researching it, And I mean, I have to say, I think going back to that thought, I thought I had the experience to do it, but it's a huge undertaking, a really huge undertaking. And it took a while, but I'm very glad we've done it, because I've seen that the power of creativity and sewing now has on our communities. So I'm really pleased that we've been able to do it.
That's incredible. That's one of the positives that came out of a really, really difficult time. It's so many people got back into creativity during lockdown, didn't they? Because it was the one thing that you could have control over when you were in a situation that was beyond your control. How lovely that it's had a lasting legacy. It's gone on to continue beyond that difficult time.
Well, it really has. And I think, as you say, there's been so much interest in people finding a hobby and a way of expressing themselves and a way of managing maybe their mental health. And creatively, I think, again, our ethos is about challenging this sort of, it's about embracing imperfection in ourselves as well as what we're sewing. So we're not a sewing school as such. We're not teaching people, couture pattern drafting and exact, we love a French seam, but we're also, if it hangs and it works and it fits you and you're happy with it, that's great, because you've made it. And, that's more important really for us, because it's the process, it's not just the result. Of course, we're always really happy when we finish a project, but anyone that does any crafting knows we've always got quite a few whips in the basket, and that's fine too. We absolutely give permission and embrace that, because, different moods need different projects, and sometimes you just need something that you can not think about. And so sashiko stitching or cantha stitching is brilliant for that. You can just do that without even thinking, but it's beautiful and intuitive, so you can just go where you want with it. Or you might choose to do something, that's much more specific, and you are trying to cut out a pattern and you need to concentrate. But having those different types of choices for people is just giving them different tools of resilience, confidence, and learning and connection. Really importantly, I think the connection is the massive thing.
Absolutely, it's so important, because we live such separate lives from each other. Even within the same household, people are, living in their own little bubble, aren't they, with their phones and everything. But to actually have a physical space where people can come together and share in something, it's just so valuable in this day and age, isn't it?
Well, it is. And, everyone talks a lot about our screens and this sort of thing. But I was lucky enough to go to Oslo a couple of years ago, and their approach to community creativity is quite amazing, and their libraries are just, I mean, they're just incredible. And I went to this library in Oslo, and I was really struck, and I just said, I would love to be able to do this sort of thing in the UK where I am. And basically they've got this enormous library in this very beautifully designed sort of library space, which is free to use. They've got a huge sewing room. I mean, honestly, it was just so wonderful, full of resources. They had staff there to teach you how to use each machine. You could basically book an hour on any machine. They had industrial machines, overlockers, embroidery machines. They had 3D printers, quick cut machines. I mean, it was just like, it was just amazing. They had changing rooms where you could, try on your own makes, all this sort of thing. Obviously, it's a very different culture, very different setup with their tax system, but it was amazing. And I've really had that in the back of my mind, having that space, as you say, for people to come to. And where I am is Cambridge. It's a really lovely city, and I'm actually from here. I was born here, and people think of Cambridge, and they quite rightly think about the university. They think of tech and pharma industries, which we have here, and that they are quite incredible. And they bring in a lot of income and a lot of tourism. But there's the other half of Cambridge as well, which is not seen really. And actually, Cambridge has been shown to be the most unequal city in the UK for wealth disparity. And when you think of what is going on in Cambridge, you can imagine that there's another side to that. And that's the side that we're working with, where the university doesn't really come into that. People do not access that, and we're able to try and help find different ways to engage with our communities. So we've got wonderful botanic gardens in Cambridge, which are part of the Cambridge University, but it's really expensive to go there, So we've got community membership. We take groups there to do sewing in the sunshine. And we've also got a group going on Monday that's going to do some printing with packaging. That's specifically for charities to access. So it means that we're working with other charities so that people can actually engage with creative arts and nature and stitching. We especially love bringing nature and stitching together. That's a really lovely way, like cyanotite. It gives such surprising results. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get. The process is the thing again. We love watching what people maybe start off with the same piece of cyanotite and some flowers, and they end up with such a different piece. And that's wonderful. That's really, really special to see, because it really brings out people's own creativity.
That sounds amazing. You're bringing together some of the best things in life, aren't you? Nature and creativity. That's incredible. So what people come to your charity? What people use your services at So Positive?
It's very mixed, actually, Lindsay. So when I first set up, I thought, I myself have live with depression and anxiety, and I thought, there's a lot of people coming through the pandemic that's going to be affected, and certainly that's what we first started to see. As time has gone on, it's now 5 years, the need and the demand has got higher in terms of the threshold of the people that we're working with. As you know, it's a really long wait often for mental health support. Often mental health is the result of other circumstances. So we tend to see people who might be carers. They may be living with other health issues, like chronic long-term health issues, or they could be experiencing neurodiversity, which hasn't been diagnosed or recognised, and they've really found themselves struggling with mental health. But it's also social isolation. A lot of people, as you've said, are really isolated. Carers, people with trauma, people who are Ukrainian refugees who are living in our city and who are, really, really struggling. And we bring all of those different communities together, really. And it is amazing. Actually, Ukrainian culture of stitching is quite incredible and strong. And in fact, we did take a trip to the Quilt Festival a couple of years ago, where they had the Ukrainian Quilt Association doing a display. It was amazing to be able to exchange like cultural differences in crafting and how those look, how they work. It was really lovely to do, actually. So yeah, it's a real mix, but I think the reason that works is because different people can peer support each other in different ways. So somebody who might be very anxious may be able to get support from someone who's a carer, but actually is feeling more confident. And we saw that when we did an exhibition recently. We had like different participants working together, and basically they set up a craft stall. We did some sessions on selling your work with an artist who sells her work, and then we helped people set up a POS on their phone, and then they sold what they made, and we had sessions for them to make things, and it was like, this is a craft sale for you to just try something out. It's not a pressured selling thing where you've got to sell, this much to cover your stand fees or whatever. This is just to try it out and try out different products, see if they work or whatever. But we want you to work together with other people. So maybe team up with people, and they did. It was amazing. We had like 8 stalls, and they did brilliantly. And between them, they sold about £2,500 worth of crafts and things that they've made. And we also had an exhibition of all their work showing the things that they had achieved. And I think that was so important to people. And I think that shows you how people can support each other. So it's not something that we're doing. We're enabling that to happen with other people. And those peer support things are really, really, really important. We're not doing that. We're just enabling that to happen.
Absolutely. That's incredible. And there's nothing more satisfying than actually being able to sell something you've made, because you realise the worth of it. You know yourself the worth of it, but for somebody else to recognise the worth of it is really special, isn't it?
Well, it is. And we did go through a lot about that, because it is a difficult area. If you've spent 6 hours crocheting a little figure, and you translate that into time per hour, we all know that that's going to be tricky to cover. So we have these conversations about pricing and expectation, and actually, do you enjoy making your products? Because if you do, that's fantastic, because you may not get the value of your time back, sadly. I mean, we also encourage people very much to sort of embrace that circular economy and way of not embracing fast fashion, so that it is about slowing down, loving what we wear, repairing what we wear. That's all part of it, really, isn't it? Because there's been this expectation that everything we want is, immediately accessible and should be cheap. And actually, we do want to recognise those amazing skills. And I think it's changing, but slowly.
Yes.
People still don't want to pay for the amount of time someone spent crocheting a jumper, which is sad.
Yeah.
But true.
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of feedback have you had from the people who've come through your doors and made use of your, learning skills and being able to actually produce things themselves?
Do you know what? It is amazing, because it is, you'd think it would be all about the sewing. Most of the feedback is actually about, this has just been amazing for my confidence. I'm able to get out. People have set up their own sewing groups. We've had somebody who's had a lot of difficult circumstances in life and has now gone to university, and she's doing a creative writing degree. She's got children who are now, also doing crafts where there was a lot of difficult issues in the home. We've got men who come who've said they feel heard. They feel like they've got a safe space for men to actually talk about mental health, which is so important when worldwide there's a suicide every minute from men, and it's such a huge issue. And we really want to get men sewing and being creative and having that sort of additional creative space to talk about mental health. So a lot of the feedback we get is, it's just great to be able to have a community. I've found a community of friends and of people that understand, but it's not just about the sewing. They can talk about whatever it is that is going on in their lives and feel like they've got a supportive group of people. And so it's different to a sort of just going to a sewing class.
It sounds like it's so much more. The community aspect of things is so important, really, because when you meet other people who've got a lived experience similar to you, to what you've experienced yourself, you then know you're not alone. And that's such an important part of moving on.
And it also means that we can, because we're a charity and we know and we're well placed and we will collaborate with a lot of other charities, we're also able to signpost people. And so we do that a lot. And people have said, oh, I'm just so grateful that you were able to then point me in the direction of this charity and these people. I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't come to So Positive. And it sounds a simple thing, but it's really important to just be able to do that, because otherwise people feel very lonely and isolated unnecessarily. And I think then people then start to think, and we're seeing this, we're setting up an ambassador program. So for people that have been coming to us for a while to actually develop those skills, and they've said, we want to give something back because we've been coming for a while. So they're going to support other people. So then it becomes this really lovely circle of support. And they're teaching people. So we had 2 participants setting up a knitting and crochet group that was, as a pilot, that was so successful that we had funding from CPSL Mind, our local Mind, for a year. And then and now that's been funded by the National Lottery for 3 years. And then initially they'd started that off by a fundraising campaign themselves to hire the venue and get that running, So it shows you that people really do want this, they need this, but we do want it to be free for those that, really are struggling. But the other thing that we're doing is that, because we're a charity, you've always got to try and think of how your funding works, and it's an absolute nightmare. The grant funding system, as I'm sure you know, Lindsay,
Yes.
is really, really tough. And when we did get the lottery funding, which was amazing for 3 years for 3 of our programmes, that is incredible, but also incredibly competitive. So it's like 16% success rate. And actually for some grants, that's actually quite high. Like the Places Postcode Lottery is like less than 10% success rate. So we spend a lot of time writing funding applications and frankly not getting them, because that's just the way it is. It's not because we're not doing valuable work. It's just because of the sheer number of people that need services that aren't able to access statutory services to support them. So we are actually setting up a social enterprise arm where we're going to do paid for courses called Gather, and they will be sort of more premium courses for the general public to come on, but we'll also have some of those spaces for our participants and volunteers who will go in a ballot just to get a place. So those places will be funded. And it will enable us to use our venue as well and get a bit more income in and have some lovely things coming. So, we're very interested in hearing from lovely artists and tutors who are in Cambridge. And if you've got any listeners that are interested, we'd love to hear, because we're going to trial it for 6 months and see how that goes, really.
Fantastic. Well, I'll make sure that all your links are in the show notes so that if anybody wants to get in contact with you, they can. That sounds amazing. So you've really built on this success, which just seems to keep growing and growing. And I know for a fact you've just recently moved into new premises in order to have, the facilities that you want to have. How's that gone?
It's a bit like moving house, Lindsay. It's like there's a lot. We've been lucky enough to use the venue for 18 months before we sort of took it over. So our sort of previous landlords, if you like, Cambridge Design Rooms, have been amazing support to us, and we stored things there beforehand, and now we're sort of repaying the favour, and they're doing fabric sales every month with the remainder of their furnishing fabric dead stock that they've still got. So I really like that collaboration, and then we've taken on a tenant next door to help to pay that enormous rent. And it's brilliant because they've already done like a photo shoot for us. They're a creative agency, and they've done a photo shoot for our exhibition. They've done some social media filming for us at very low cost. And, just actually collaborating with organisations. But having the space is like amazing. I mean, for several years, I carried around 27 sewing machines, 27 venues, and I carried sewing machines around them all. And I was like, oh my goodness, we need to find somewhere. This is, sewing machines were getting very grumpy about being moved a lot, and, not surprisingly, so was I.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. Goodness me.
There was one evening when I was doing an evening class with Ukraine refugees, and it was raining, and I was putting the sewing machines in the car, and I'd done buttonholes that evening, and I don't know what possessed me to do an evening on buttonholes. I don't think I'll ever do one again after that, but the buttonhole gods, suffice to say, were not on my side that night. And then when I came to pack up, it was raining, and I was just like, oh, we need to find a venue. Now we have one, and it is fabulous. It's like, it's like the sewing bee. We've got a beautiful setting. We've got lots of donated machines. We're just getting up to speed with getting some industrial machines cleaned up and that sort of thing. We've got some heritage machines. We've got a 1980s Bernina, which looks like it'll outlive us all. Back to an 1876 Singer, crank, which is amazing. So we've got everything in there and lots of materials. And it's a really lovely, warm, welcoming space. So, and it backs onto the Millraid Cemetery in Cambridge, which Jack's Gelato do a fig leaf ice cream on every year, and it sells out instantly. I mean, it's one of these lovely areas that's right in the centre of town, and is a big green space. It's got a sculpture trail about birds, and it is actually a really peaceful place. So we can also go and sew in the sunshine there as well, which is wonderful.
Oh, nice.
I think a lot of people, what sewing is like. It takes up a lot of room. You can try cutting things on your floor, and if you haven't got that space at home, it's brilliant to be able to have that for our services. So, and again, it is just one big space. So, people can do different things in different areas, and there's a chill out zone, and we can make tea and coffee as well. So we're very, very pleased to be able to have that now.
Oh, that's amazing. I bet you could never imagine when you first started making those masks way back in 2020 that this would come out of it. It's absolutely remarkable.
It is really, and it just shows you. I mean, I felt in myself at the time, I was 50 and I'd been made redundant. It was lockdown. It was a hard time. I was middle of perimenopause and depression and the pandemic. And I thought, I think my working life is over. I don't know what I'm going to do. I worked in marketing and I didn't want to work in marketing anymore. So now I'm doing a job which is like about 15 different jobs in one. And I feel like I've got so much purpose in my life, and I love it. And ironically, the only thing that's difficult is I don't have very much time to sew anymore.
Yes, you're too busy helping other people do it instead.
I still have that thing where I start things, and then, at the moment, my poor partner, I've never made anything for him because I'm trying to make him some swim shorts. Why I started with swim shorts, I'll never know. But yeah, I won't bore you with that story, but they're still not finished.
One day.
Yeah, I'll get there.
So what's on the horizon for So Positive in the middle to distant future?
So, we've just been, delivering some new services. So we're just launching one in the South Cambs area. So we're doing that in collaboration with another art group called Weissing Arts. So we're delivering that. And then we've got more programs coming in. We're running about 5 to 7 programs a week now. So that's pretty full on. And I think, the Gather social enterprise part will be a sort of interesting pilot to see if we can make that work. And then we're really going to just be delivering all the things that we've promised to deliver with the National Lottery and with our City Council and all of those things. And there's quite a lot of programs there. So it'll just be sort of working out. And we do that in co-production with our participants. We just had a co-production day where we looked with tutors about what works, what people like to see, if they had, even if they'd been coming to So Positive for a while, what would new people like to see? And if you were coming back as a new participant, what might be something you'd love to see that you haven't done? And, and how that might help mental health, how it might address the social isolation, other things we can do. So those sorts of conversations are really important to us. And I think just trying to work more with statutory authorities like the NHS, our volunteers do a lot of training with the NHS. So we've just done trauma-informed care training and training about personality disorders. It's really important for our volunteers to sort of understand those boundaries of how to protect themselves as well, because we're not clinically trained, but we do meet people who have got a lot of difficult issues. So it's just giving people those tools, because we are mostly volunteer-led, to know how to handle that and know where we have a limit of our service of what we can do.
Wow.
So I think, there's a lot on our plate, but
it sounds like it.
And obviously we're doing more collaborations as well with different charities and businesses as well. So we've just done an event at Cambridge University Press and Assessment in Cambridge on Earth Day. That was all about textile waste. So we love doing those sorts of things. And we've got some events coming up at the Grand Arcade for their Let's Go Circular event, which is all about the circular economy. So we get involved in a lot of different things, really. So I'm sure in your show notes you'll put our link tree up. And
absolutely.
But more volunteers. We're really keen to get any volunteers, especially men, because we really want to encourage that trope that men don't sew. It's like, boys sew too. That whole hashtag is great. We've met Mark as well, and we're always keen to promote that idea. So, and one of our volunteers actually is entering for the sewing bee. So we'll have everything crossed for that, because if that came off, that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
How amazing. Yes, that would be. Well, yes, fingers crossed for that. That would be very exciting. That's one to watch.
Yeah, definitely one to watch.
Oh, fabulous. Well, Melissa, it's been an absolute joy speaking to you and hearing about the wonderful work that you're doing down in Cambridge. Thanks so much for sharing it with us.
Oh, I'm really delighted. Thank you so much for asking me on. And great to meet you properly as well.
My thanks again to Melissa for speaking to me for Making Stitches. It was so lovely to hear about the amazing work being done by Sew Positive. Please check out the show notes on your podcast app or over on the Making Stitches podcast website to find all the links to Sew Positive if you'd like to learn more. And thank you to you too for listening. That's all for this time, but I will be back again in 2 weeks' time with more creative chat. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please share it with anyone else who you think might like to hear it too. And to make sure you don't miss out on the next episode when it arrives, make sure you're following Making Stitches podcast on social media and on your favourite podcast app. Until next time, thanks again for listening. Take care of yourself and enjoy your crafting.